thank you for attending. Thank you for coming into this last session of Group X today. My name's Carl McCartney. I head up Global Sales Enablement for Les Mills. So I've got the unique privilege and pleasure of working across 8 different markets and looking at what some of the biggest global fitness trends are out there in terms of health and fitness. So today I'm going to be talking about innovation that really moves members, talking about the strength and mind-body trends that are starting to shape the future of fitness. For today's presentation, we're going to go on a little bit of a journey. We're going to start off by looking at how the industry has rebounded since the pandemic and looking at how, from global markets around the world, the industry has never been stronger. We've got more members engaged in regular group activity. In fact, the latest research, I think we're at about 16% of the population as members of gyms right now, which is the biggest that it's ever been. It was stuck at 14 for as long as I can remember. We're then going to look at what's happening in the world of strength. And in particular, when we look at what's happening in the world of strength, we're going to examine some of the latest trends and some that you may not already be thinking of. Then we're going to be looking at how mind-body is starting to shift, how the trend around mind-body and wellness is shaping the strategies that many operators have around the world to offer the right classes for their members. We're going to touch a little bit on what we call MVPs. Who are your most valuable participants right now? And this is a short excerpt from a presentation that I did earlier on this morning that talked about how to engage members in different ways by looking at who are your most valuable. We'll touch a little bit on generations, how to program for different generations and different demographics. No longer is it about the boomers and the Gen X's that are members of health clubs. In fact, it's about millennials, Gen Z, and even alphas. How are you programming towards different generations? What are we doing in this space? What are some of the innovations that we're offering? And then lastly, we're going to set you a 90-day action plan that you can take away with some key deliverable results that will help you change your timetable. So let's start by looking at the global rebound. Some of it's gone off there, but it's okay, it's just the formatting. When we're looking at what's happening around the world, there is an average or estimated 77 million people regularly attending health clubs and fitness facilities in the US. And Europe is closely following with 67.6 million people attending regularly. And when we think about the industry revenue, it's never been bigger. Even for when we cater towards inflation, the revenue that the fitness industry generates has never been bigger. The US is a $45 billion US industry, with Europe at 31.8 billion euros. So it's massive, it's absolutely huge. We've seen an increase in membership, we've seen an increase in yield, people are willing to pay more for experiences, people are taking wellness and health more seriously, and as a result, it's never been a better time to be part of the fitness industry. And then when we look at how this is changing how operators are starting to build clubs, it's a very, very different space. So I talked about this in the first session this morning, but when we look at the footprint of a fitness facility maybe 15 years ago, when we think about the cardio area, it was a much, much bigger footprint per square meter per member. It's now decreased down to 4 square meters per member, whereas a CrossFit style space or a functional gym has definitely taken over. We're creating much bigger spaces, much bigger locations, but we're also seeing a huge lift in free weights area and functional zones. And by the way, when we think about CrossFit style, we're talking lifting platforms, squat racks, different areas. If you look at most conventional gyms now, where they would have traditionally had a bank of treadmills, and then a row of bikes, then cross trainers, then steppers, recumbent bikes, which don't even get me started on, it was always a must-have for gym operators. Most savvy gyms now are taking out that cardio area and replacing it with strength training equipment. It's a huge trend that we're seeing. However, the demand for strength training has become so big for many operators, they no longer have a solution for catering for the demand. Because you've got people coming onto the gym floor that want to train out in that style, but they don't have the expertise or knowledge, or worse still, it's overpopulated and oversubscribed where people feel intimidated to step into that space. So how are you programming, how are you coordinating that from a strength training perspective so people have an option to train in a different way? Now, of course, we're going to say this, but the industry research indicates that group training is still the most profitable area of a club. A group exercise studio, a group training area, a place where people can congregate with community, with engagement with other members, is still the most profitable. Why? Because people attend more often, they're more likely to refer people to attend, and they generally achieve better results because of the long-term nature of attending and the advocacy that it builds. So this builds profitability for you as a club. Now, as I said, of course, we're going to say that at Les Mills. That's what we do. We build group training studios. We create programs. We help operators enhance this space. But I want you to look at this and think, how does that map to my current club? If I'm going to adapt towards future trends, what am I doing in these spaces to really create a profitable blueprint for what I offer within my facility? So when we think about the strength movement, I touched upon this before, strength is still the #1 global trend according to the ACSM. This has continued to be that way since 2021. This has been a massive shift. The ACSM top 10 trends have shifted from time to time. HIIT training being dominant and prevalent for many years from 2010 onwards. That's seen a decrease in activity, with high intensity training replacing high intensity interval training, and there is a difference between the two. 60% of members now train with resistance weekly. Now, once again, if I step back 10, 15 years ago, when we think about resistance training in most clubs, it would have been a selectorized piece of equipment, pin loaded, wouldn't necessarily be plate loaded, and the free weights areas were minimal compared to the other areas within the club. Flip that on its head, that's massively changed. Strength training is becoming more and more of a demand. Why? Younger generations are looking for strength training. Younger generations identify strength training as a key goal to achieve. Second thing, strength training is being prescribed, particularly for those on weight loss programs now. Whereas in the past, strength training was perceived as, if I do strength training, I'm going to get bulky. It's being prescribed for people on weight loss training. Within that as well, strength training is also being prescribed, although not adhered to, being prescribed to people on the GLP-1. So Ozempic or Mounjaro, strength training is a key component for that to maintain muscular mass. And the third thing, one of the biggest reasons, is the education around strength training, osteoporosis, and healthy well-being for older adults is growing. So it's every single demographic that can see strength training as a key component of fitness. Now, alongside this, and you're probably wondering, why have I put Hyrox up there? Hyrox in itself is strength training. Now, it's predominantly guided towards runners. You have to be able to run 8 kilometers to perform in a Hyrox event. But when you look at the events themselves, many of them come back to traditional strength training. From farmers' carries to sled pulls and pushes, all the way through to wall balls, they're a form of strength training. And Hyrox is on the increase, is growing, is what I meant to say. So last year, there were 175,000 participants in 65 cities, and that is showing a 70% year-on-year growth, and it continues to expand. The one danger I would always say around Hyrox, though, is that it's still at a minority of members that will be attending those events, but still it becomes aspirational. So operators that are going all in on Hyrox, I would absolutely commend and say, do so if you have the member demographic to do it, but it's not the silver bullet that's going to solve all of the challenges or problems for all of your members. It's a great addition to have, but it's not the silver bullet. So we're seeing this as a global trend, and it's growing year on year on year. When we think about strength within your facility, here are 5 top tips that we would recommend that you have when thinking about your program. The first thing is offer some form of strength training in the group training location. So we talked about group training being the most profitable area. We talked about it being on the rise. We talked about different demographics wanting some form of strength training. What we're saying is anchor strength in prime time. We recently did some research on over 1,000 clubs across the UK, and we looked at their timetables. And we looked at some of the most successful clubs within the UK, scraped the data off their timetable, and what we found is that 82% of clubs have a strong presence of strength training on their group exercise timetable at peak times. If you were to remove strength training, the estimation is that you would decrease by 60% of utilization if you removed it. Why? Member demand, member demographic, and the fact that attendance is already there. The second thing we'd recommend is offer some clear progression path. What we mean by this is, if you've got a brand new member coming into your gym, how do you onboard them into strength training? How do you get them into training in that free weights area on a lifting platform straight away? Do you have coaches available to take them through the basics of lifting? If you've got a new member coming on board that wants to progress into deadlifts because they've seen the trend on Instagram and they think deadlifts are the way forwards, are you programming with a hinge to start with, bringing in dumbbell training and then bringing in deadlifts using a bar? So have a clear progression path for people that want to progress. Then, talked a little bit about this before, design spaces that signal confidence and community. Build lifting spaces, strength spaces, or even group training spaces that signal confidence and community. What we mean by that is, don't make them intimidating. Free weights areas with lots of mirrors are great for your members that know what they're doing. But free weights areas with lots of mirrors are a nightmare for brand new participants because one, they feel self-conscious, and two, they don't want to look at themselves performing the technique bad. Or badly, sorry, that's really bad of me to say. So think about creating a dynamic space that maybe takes mirrors out, but people feel confident enough to train in. And also build community. Question for you, we've got a few more people in the room so I can ask this. If I was to say in your club, and I don't know where any of you work, Monday night at 7 o'clock, if I were to look at your gym floor, what's the one piece of equipment that's guaranteed to be oversubscribed? It's in the free weights area. Bench. Thank you. I was waiting for a guy to say this. Why? Because Monday is International Bench Press Day for every man. It's in our DNA. We don't even know. When we join gyms, we have to train chest on a Monday. It's the law. But Monday night at 7 o'clock, is it one person on the bench? Is it people jumping in and out? Is it groups of people working out and training in that space? There's a little community hub of people working out in that area. And that's what we mean by community, building spaces where people can congregate, interact, and engage with each other. And the bench press is a prime example. Wherever I go around the world, I just look at, it's not always 7 o'clock. UK it is because that's generally when we train. But in South Africa, for example, it's 5:30. In New Zealand, it's 4:30 to 5 o'clock because that's when they finish work. But that bench press is guaranteed to be used in any club you go to around the world. It's just, it's amazing. It always works. But it's the community build around that and people are congregating there. Think about expanding your demographics through inclusive functional zones. So the inclusive, maybe older adult classes, maybe areas that you can have group training workouts on the gym floor. We've definitely seen that with some key operators, but create those functional zones where people can attend. And think about recruiting coaches that really coach for motivation, not just beasting people. Coaching people for motivation, increasing technique, and having a strong performance. And we found that if you do that, people will rebook of an increase to 20 to 30%. So there's some key things around strength training or strength in your club that go beyond just buying the right equipment. There's some tactical, practical things that you can do based on your club operations. So that's on strength. Then, have I turned it off? I haven't. Let's think about wellness and the wellness renaissance because it's coming around again. It's becoming more and more prevalent, particularly in the yoga space. When we think about yoga and what we're seeing around the world, yoga has never been bigger. It is estimated that there are 300 million people practicing yoga worldwide right now. It's become the biggest boom ever. It's a $1.5 billion industry right now when it comes to training, certification, and also what people are paying for yoga experiences. Wellness is also a top 3 reason for joining a gym. Stress relief, flexibility, mental clarity, and injury prevention continue to be key. Now, this is the global or the US Fitness Trends report from 2023, but we're seeing that come through more and more. In fact, when we know that 6 out of 10 people join a fitness facility because of classes, wellness being a top 3 reason as to why people are attending those classes in that club. So if you're not offering a wellness solution right now, you're missing out on a huge market opportunity. If you offer wellness, it will drive ROI. So some examples. If you offer wellness within your facility, attrition will decrease by 43% when members start to balance their training. So it's not just strength training, it's not just cardio, but balancing it with cross-training, wellness will stay. Members who attend wellness will stay 7 months longer, and their lifetime value can increase by up to 40%. And that's in our Les Mills MVP study that we talked about in the session earlier. Pilates bookings have increased by 84% globally, with low-impact classes coming in at over 109%. The global wellness economy is $1.8 trillion right now. Not the yoga boom, but the wellness economy, $1.8 trillion. And 79% of people, when surveyed, state they train for mental health benefits. So if you're not offering this within your club right now, what's the solution? What's the opportunity? How do you grow? How do you evolve? Like we did with strength, 5 top tips for building your mind body. Number 1, treat wellness as part of your core offering. Don't just think of it as a nice to have on schedules. Too many times I see club operators with a program and they'll offer Pilates or yoga classes because they have an instructor and it's a nice to have. Think about it as your core proposition. Think about what you need to offer. Ensure that you offer a variety of mind-body programs, so both dynamic programming and also restorative sessions. Now this can be something as simple as a dynamic yoga program and a stretch-based class with some form of breath work or meditation. Ensure that you design for experience. Like we talked about creating strength zones within your clubs, make sure you have locations in your facility that have the right sensory lighting and sound. The last thing you want to do, and I've been there and done this, is go into a wellness class straight after a high impact class where the temperature is too high, let's just say that the smell isn't necessarily advisory for some form of wellness activity, and the lights are really bright and overpowering. Create spaces that create that sensory deregulation so you can come back down and deregulate from the high intensity experience. Encourage your members to take part in at least one restorative session weekly. If you do this, you can decrease attrition by around about 43%. Why do we know that? It increases attendance, increases likelihood of staying, and that restorative session balances out other forms of training. And the last thing is, think about recruiting coaches within your facility that aren't just about personal training, strength, and some of the big industry trends we've seen for years. Think about recruiting coaches for wellness and mind-body. Think about recruiting people that can deliver these programs or these sessions with that in mind. All right. So I talked a little bit before about the most valuable participants. So the research that we've done is looking at 2.6 million member journeys across 1,300 different operators across the UK, Europe, and into the US. And what we found in terms of some of the statistics is if we can get people active and engaged in regular group training or regular training that meets their demand, it increases attendance, which therefore has positive benefits on ROI. Now, rather than me talking through those slides, I did that in a session earlier, just a short video just to say who an MVP is.
All club members are equal, right? New research says no. The global report from Les Mills finds certain members are MVPs, your club's most valuable participants. MVPs are the secret weapon to success, filling your club every hour of the day. Compared to typical members, MVPs attend your club 65% more often than other members, stay with your club 39% longer, and are 88% more likely to still be active after 12 months than other members. MVPs are the key to a more profitable business. So how can you attract them? Our new report offers a bulletproof playbook for packing your club with MVPs.
So I drop that in there because that includes some insights in terms of some of the latest industry trends in wellness, and particularly on strength training. So I thought we'd include that. But some of the stats that we've included: MVPs, 53% more willing to pay for a gym membership that offers the activity they're looking for. So based on the demands around strength and wellness, you can increase your pricing based on that demand. They'll stay longer, 39%. They're more likely to stay active after 12 months at 88%. They say that their favorite activities are more likely to continue with their membership. That's at 93%. And MVPs visit their club 65% more than other members. The one other stat that's really astonishing is this: clubs without some form of MVP activity, some group training, high quality, particularly in strength and mind body, experience a 187% higher attrition rate than those that offer them. And what we mean by that is when we compare clubs that offer opportunities or exercise or programming rather that is not in line with the members' goals or needs compared to those that do, common sense, we've seen a big shift. So I wanted to drop that in. But the reason I wanted to do that is because it's not always about strength and wellness as the key trend. Now, they're driving activity across the business. But what it comes down to is really it comes down to motivation. The fitness industry is half about exercise and half about motivating people to do it. During the pandemic, we saw a huge rise on outdoor activity because it was the only exercise that we could do. How many of you were sick of hearing about people's 5K times through social media? I've improved my 5K time by this because it was the only thing we could do. Now, the reality is, as an industry, what we offer within the fitness facilities now can be replicated elsewhere. You can do a workout in a local park. You can go for a run. You could work out at home with some bodyweight exercises. But where we will succeed, where we're going to grow, where we're really going to achieve growth within the industry is where we find the right motivation by tapping into the people that are working out within our clubs. So when we think about the future of fitness and the trends, how are we offering the right motivation for people to attend more often? Now, to help with that, we need to think about different demographic profiles and what motivates different member demographics. Now, we have a whole presentation on this, and I'm not going to deliver all of that today, but when we think about the key demographics within your clubs right now, they want different things. So let's start with the easy one. Let's start with some of your older adults, the older population, the boomers. We think about the boomer generation. So many operators that I've spoken to over the years, particularly in the UK, state that we have an older member demographic. And that's probably true. You probably have a number of members that are of an older age. What we found, though, is there's a difference between the average age of member and the average age of joiner, which I'll come to in a moment. But typically, boomers are a mainstay within most club operators. When we think about what motivates boomers, it's very, very different when you compare it to a Gen Z. Boomers, number one, community. Building a sense of community within your club. Building operational activities with like-minded individuals that they can come and attend more often. Second thing when it comes to motivation, it's about intensity without the intensity. What I mean by that is it's not high intensity, it's not low intensity, but it's that Goldilocks zone of being just right. Some form of intensity to increase heart rate, increase sweat, but without the high level motivation that a boot camp would. And the third thing when we think about it, there is a degree of wellness in there as well. Just some form of activity around wellness. Then we come down into Gen X. Now, I'm of the Gen X population or generation, and when we think about how I was brought up on training, it is definitely about training. It's definitely about working out. The language that you use in my generation was working out. So what we mean by that is classes that will work out with other individuals. So things like our program, like Body Pump, for example, was definitely, when it was originally launched, was a Gen X program. Working out with other people, being in the class, great music, great exercise, high intensity in terms of the sweat, but that's what we're looking for. It's looking at that workout mindset. When we think about Gen Z and millennials, though, it's no longer about working out, it's more about training. They want to train. This is why High Rocks has seen such a high boom, because it's now about training. Training for an event, training for a goal, training for a competition. It's very, very different than just working out. Why is all of this important when we start to think about motivation? Well, think about your marketing strategies. Think about the language that we use. We've done quite a lot of research into habits and why people perform exercise in terms of the regular habits they have. And we've used the concept which James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits of habit stacking, is stacking one habit on top of another. So for example, placing your workout kit next to the door first thing in the morning if you're getting up early for a workout, or better still, placing your workout kit next to your bed, so as soon as you get out of bed, that's the first habit. The second habit is put your workout kit on. Third habit is brushing your teeth. Fourth habit is then driving to the gym. You're creating habits by stacking them along the way. So we've done a lot of research into habits. Alongside that research, though, we've uncovered what turns people off from exercise. I spoke a little bit about this earlier in this morning's session, but what we found is that 68% of new participants, regardless of demographic, 68% of new participants have stated that the word challenge, motivation, or some form of high intensity is off-putting to them joining a gym. So when we think about how we generally tend to do this, we say, right, join the gym, it's a 3-week challenge. New participants are like, there's no challenge. Challenge will stop me from attending. How do you create community? How do you build accomplishment within community? So think about how you market, how you speak to different demographics, and I can share with you a wider piece on that demographic profiling when it comes to motivation if you want to. So please grab my details afterwards. Just didn't want to include it all in the session. So then think about how you innovate in strength. One of the biggest innovations we've seen in strength training is absolutely high rocks, and it's an innovation that's built upon the CrossFit trend, that was built upon circuit training, which was built upon other forms of activity. And we've seen this in terms of strength training in different ways across different markets. The boom of F45 was massive across most global markets. It's the fastest growing franchise, but it's also been the fastest in decline. Why? Because you've then got another franchise operator coming into the space, BFT, that looks at more strength-based training beyond just what F45 was, which was hybrid training, which was a combination of strength, cardio, small amounts of recovery as well. So how are you innovating in strength? When we think about how we're evolving as a company, we've really listened to what's happening out there in the industry. It could be argued that we've been leading the strength industry with regards to group training for a number of years. Body Pump has been the #1 strength training program in the group training area for the past 30 years within the UK when we launched in 1995. But we need to innovate to stay relevant in this space. So we've really listened to what's happening out there in the industry, and we've created our new program. So this is Body Pump, if you haven't seen it before. High reps, high energy. And that's evolved since we first launched in the early 90s, 1995 at Filex, all the way through to today. The Body Pump continues to be our staple program. It still continues to grow. But in the group training area, we've realized that we need to adapt that, we need to change it. And we launched a program not so long ago called Strength Development, which was targeting strength training in a more coached format. But we've innovated even further with our brand new program, which we're extremely proud, called Body Pump Heavy.
Presents Body Pump Heavy, the new workout of the decade, the strength class we've all been waiting for. A new evolution in weightlifting, where heavy weights meet tempo training. Wherever you are on your strength journey, Body Pump Heavy meets you there. Slow, controlled movements fire up your metabolic engine and leave you feeling strong and powerful. It sounds too good to be true, but this is the magic formula. Iconic music, group energy, and Les Mills certified instructors. This training won't only change your body, it will boost your mood and support your mental well-being. No intimidation, just you getting strong. Let it unlock your true power. This is strength training for everyone.
So I wanted to share that with you, not to sell you the program, actually just to think about the language that was used in that video. We've been really conscious about the language that we've used. So meeting people where they are, wherever they are on their strength journey. So you probably saw there, I'll let you take the picture. You probably saw that, I won't play the picture, but you saw there the movement patterns were fairly simple. Hip bridges, deadlifts, shoulder presses, squats, lunges, the essential strength training patterns. Now, we're using it with a bar and we've put Body Pump Heavy in there, but the reality is, if someone comes in and just does that workout with a bar on its own, that's meeting them where they are on the strength journey. And the same thing happens or occurs to me when we think about how you're innovating within your clubs around strength. It's not always about how much can you bench or how much can you deadlift. If you can just get people moving effectively with just a bar alone, that's going to move them further forward on their strength training journey. That's what we're trying to do with Body Pump Heavy. And how we've evolved this, and once again, I wanted to illustrate this because this is how we're evolving to grow. We think of a strength being a continuum across the schedule. So if you take our programs off of this and just think about what you offer in strength right now, think about the 3 different areas. If we start over here on the right-hand side, resisted cardio being strength training. So you could put high rocks on here, some form of resisted cardio training. Grit is our high-intensity interval training program that uses a barbell for high-intensity peaks with recovery along the way. We've then got Les Mills Ceremony, which is circuit training, alternating cardio with resistance exercises. There's a difference between these two. This is high-intensity interval training. This is high-intensity training. So it doesn't have the highs and lows in the intervals, but it still keeps it high. We call this resisted cardio. Are you offering some form of resisted cardio in your gym or within your classes? If you think about most classes out there, resisted cardio could be a conditioning class, could be a sculpt class, dare I say it, a legs, bums and tums class. That could be a resisted cardio that you offer within your gym. Then we get into strength endurance, which is where body pump absolutely sits, which is high reps, low weights, limited recovery, but elevates the heart rate and maintains the heart rate through endurance. Then we think about pure strength. Now, when we say pure strength, it's at the end of the continuum with body pump heavy, but it's not pure strength as in will increase your max deadlift, your 1RM or your 1 RM around your bench. But what we have done is slowed the movements down, slowed it down to the point where we use longer recoveries, heavier weights, which meets people where they are on their strength journey. So if you take our programs off of this, and I'm using this just to illustrate it, if you think about what you offer within your club around strength training, do you offer something across each of these genres? Or are you literally just sitting in this camp or this camp? Could you offer more in strength training that will give members more opportunity and variety? Then we move into how we're innovating in the field of mind and body. For many, many years, as we did with body pump in strength, our mind-body offering was one program or one program alone, and that was body balance. So I won't play you all of that video, but body balance was our yoga, Tai Chi, Pilates fusion workout. And for years, that's all we were known for. But we realized that we need to step away from that. We launched Les Mills Pilates last year, which has gone very, very well and succeeded. But with the yoga boom and the yoga trend, we needed to offer something different. And that's where Les Mills Yoga comes in. Now rather than just look at the program on this, have a look at some of the stats that come up on screen. 273 billion by 2034. Boutique studios are claiming 32% of the yoga market right now. But there's space for regular independent operators. So we've now stepped in with Les Mills Yoga. And as it said right at the end there, we've looked at what some of the trends are around yoga and offered different disciplines. So we think about yoga in most health clubs. Most operators will offer some form of yoga, and it's generally hatha. Entry level, forms dynamic postures, usually delivered around 90 minutes with some form of meditation and breath work in there as well. But hatha yoga is the one that most operators will sit within. And we're not saying this isn't valuable, but it's just one discipline. Then we come into vinyasa yoga, which is more dynamic, which has more dynamic-based holds and holding more difficult poses for longer. And many operators run this, but it's seen as an advanced form of yoga. It doesn't necessarily have to be. People are looking for different forms of strength training within yoga. Then, at the opposite end of the scale, we have yin, which is much more restorative, much more relaxing with regards to holding the postures in a non-dynamic way for much longer. So laying down, holding the stretches, holding it out there for a much longer duration. And then the one that I'm really excited about, and one that I love, is Les Mills Breath, or Breathworks. Breathworks is becoming more and more popular. When we talk about Breathworks, this doesn't mean just going to a class and breathing for 45 minutes. It's about how you breathe through different movement patterns, using the diaphragm to breathe correctly, but also to down-regulate away from some of the higher intensity forms of exercise. Now, why these two innovations, strength and wellness, work so well together is they absolutely complement what people need within their lifestyle. Too many people train for strength training without the need for wellness and recovery. So what we did, we looked at this and said, if we were to launch a yoga program, how could we do this in such a way that there's a yoga discipline for each different style of participant? And we feel that by offering 4 different options, these are available out there in clubs to cement and complement the strength training offer. So I wanted to highlight that with you, not to sell you these programs, but just to say, as an organization, as a business, we've had strong grounding in strength and mind-body for 30 years. But we need to innovate and change. And we encourage operators to do the same thing. Even though you've had strong strength training for the last duration, what are you doing to innovate and grow? How are you thinking about that continuum, about your product offering and offering something different? So to finish up, and I've left some time for questions on this. Your 90-day action plan, if you think about the trends that we've just demonstrated here, what can you take away from today? So in the next 90 days, if you think about strength training, look at your current group fitness schedule and audit the current timetable share. We know that 8 key trends dominate 80% of group fitness attendances in clubs around the world. And the number 1 trend on that is strength training. Do you have enough strength training classes on your timetable? Do you have 3 progressive strength sessions in your time slots? So think about progressive as being something suitable for everybody that can meet them where they're at within their strength journey. And make sure you track attendance weekly and member feedback to track in how that's growing and progressing. For mind body, introduce 1 restorative or recovery session daily. Highlight the benefits via email and in-club signage and make sure you capture attendance. And track this at the start of the 90 days and at the end. And the last thing, think about the environment that you're providing around strength and mind body. Upgrade lighting, sound and layout for experience impact. And then once again, use before and after surveys to track the impact for your members. Then when we think about the people, think about your coaches. So could you spotlight 1 instructor every week on screens or via socials? Can you highlight somebody that you want to drive attendance to? Can you share positive member quotes or testimonials in team meetings? And can you provide peer feedback sessions? Can you provide sessions for the instructors to give each other feedback? And then in terms of retention and measurement, track the monthly attrition and lifetime value by category, hold a monthly review of attendance and renewals, and celebrate the progress of those instructors or those individuals driving the biggest attendance publicly. So there's just a few tips that you can take away from today that hopefully you've looked at this information, you thought, I can change a few things here. Maybe you take some of these actions, maybe you take none of them or just a few. But this will help you shift your business forward around some of the industry trends around strength and also for mind body.